Enter Garmin. Now first it was the Fenix 7X, then it was the Epix Pro, and then it was, more recently, the pinnacle of Garmin watches, the Garmin Mark.
To say that choosing a Garmin watch can be a confusing choice would be an understatement. There are just so many different options, from budget to luxury, new releases to old classics, and specific watches for specific features and activities which are nearly identical to other products. The wide selection of watches is, well, very wide. So in this video, I want to help you narrow down your decision and find the best Garmin watch for you depending on your budget and your needs. And as someone who has personally been able to test and review a variety of Garmin watches over the past couple of years, plus I happen to live near the location of the only Garmin store here in the UK, we popped to the Garmin store in Southampton West Quay to physically check out all of the available watches sold by Garmin today. Starting off with all of the watches which are currently available from Garmin's own website, and this is where you'll see just how ridiculous this is. We have Instinct, Forerunner, Venu, Tactics, Enduro, Bounce, Lily, Mark, Approach, Descent, Quatix, Vivo Move, Vivo Active, Vivo Smart, Vivo Fit, D2, Phoenix, and that is not even all of them, because a lot of these series then have multiple versions beneath them. Yes, of course, in multiple sizes and finishes, but also take the Venu X1, for example, which looks totally different to the Venu 4. And then there's the Venu SQ2, the Music Edition, the 3S, the 2 Plus. It really is a bit of a mess. But the great thing about Garmin watches, at least, is that broadly speaking, they all run the same software. So once you've used one, you can pretty much use any of them. Same interface, same buttons doing the same thing, so that is at least great. So I'm gonna try my very best to simplify this for you depending on your use case. And this video isn't sponsored, but there is a way for UK viewers to get up to 40% off Garmin devices when you sign up for Vitality health insurance here in the UK. Now, I've been using Vitality for the last 8 years or so. It cost me around £100 per month for private health insurance. And aside from all the, typical benefits from private healthcare, including actually being able to get access to a GP, you also get discounts. Now, I'm going to put a table on the screen here with all of the available Garmin discounts, but alongside that, there are also free cinema tickets, coffees, Carluccio's meals, and Deliveroo Plus, as well as discounts on Merlin attractions, Itsu meals, gym memberships, Samsung products, and just way more. Now, I have my Refer a Friend link, which I'll link down below this video, that also gets you £100 cashback when you sign up. And if you'd like to subscribe whilst you're down looking at that link, it goes a huge way to support this channel. Now, starting with the best running watch. Now, this also applies for the best swimming and best cycling watch. This category really gives you 3, possibly 4 options here. You have the Forerunner, Phoenix, Enduro, and maybe the Venu X1. Now, with the Forerunner, there are multiple versions. So you have the 55, 165, 570, and the 970, which all step up in terms of their features, but also their price. Now, these are all based on the current pricing on their website. So $179 for the 55, $249 for the 165, right up to $630 for the 970. And then you have $679 for the Venu X1, $769 for the Enduro 3, and $779 through to $1729 for the Phoenix 8, again, depending on the model. So starting with the Venu X1, this one has the largest touchscreen of any smartwatch currently available, including non-Garmin devices. And this is super light, super thin, but because of this, it has a much shorter 1 to 2 day battery life in real world when compared to other Garmin watches. Now, it also has less buttons, and I know the buttons are very important to runners, so you don't, accidentally pause your watch amongst other things that I just see people constantly complain about with their Apple Watch all the time. But if a large touchscreen Garmin is what you're after, this one is a good option for you. Well, it's the only option for you. Now, next is the Forerunner, which comes in multiple models. You've got the 55 and 165, which work great for basic fitness features. There is a separate model of the 165, which has onboard storage for music. Otherwise, you only get playback controls of your phone's music. The 570 gets you some additional training and GPS features, things like training readiness, training status, multi-sport activities, and also onboard music. And so if you just want want a basic watch to run with, then either the 55 or the 165 will be a good value buy. Opt for the 165 Music though if you want to run with earbuds perhaps. And only for the most serious runners who then need, built-in mapping features. You also get a built-in flashlight. Then there is the more expensive 970. Closer to that price also is the Enduro, which is a solid option for running. And since it has a memory and pixel display, plus it has solar power, you can get around about 3 weeks of battery life in a single charge. Plus, they were telling me in store here, combined with that solar, you can technically get infinity battery. You get a little infinity logo pop up on the screen apparently. So if that's important to you, then this is a solid option. And if you prefer that brighter AMOLED display, also diving features, or want the added speaker in the mic, then the Forerunner or even the Fenix 8 would be a better choice here. Now I know a lot of people just wear running watches for, well, running, and if that's you, then I would personally recommend the Forerunner 55 or the 165 or the Enduro if you want to just spend a little bit more and don't actually like charging your watch. But I actually say the better watch here is the Fenix 8 if you want the best of the best here. It is a much more expensive watch, yes, but it packs a lot of features and just the overall quality of the Fenix range is really great. And there are of course a ton of options here, from sizes to colors. There's more budget options if you look at the Fenix E series to the very topmost Fenix 8 Pro series, which add on features such as the very much anticipated LTE for calls and texts without your phone. Also satellite communications to provide off-grid support if you find yourself stuck on a mountaintop, along with a whole range of other features. Now this one is using traditional SMS for the messaging, and for the phone calls, the recipient will actually need to set up a Garmin Messenger account to receive those calls, just to make you aware of that. Now, like I said, it is a more expensive watch, so my overall recommendation here for the best running watch would be the Forerunner 55 or the 165. But if you want a more premium watch that's also good for general, day-to-day wear outside of running, then the Garmin Fenix 8 in whichever size, whichever color variant that you like. Next up, at the risk of putting my foot in my mouth here, I'm also going to try and cover the best Garmin watch for women's health tracking also. Now, since the women I do know vary in terms of what they're looking for in a watch, like some of them just want a more aesthetically pleasing watch. I know a lot of the Garmin watches are, very big, very bulky, and would look quite out of place on smaller wrists, but one that can still do things like fitness and women's cycle tracking. So for the budget buyers, there is the Vivo Move at $179, the Lily 2 at $249, the Vivo Active at $279, and the Venu 4 at $469. The Vivo Move has a more traditional watch face, but with a hidden screen behind it to show data and notifications. It is a really nice blend of physical and digital, whereas the Lily 2 and the Vivo Active are a purely digital watch. Now, both of these, of course, again, can vary styles, various colors, and both of them have a number of health and fitness features, from sleep and heart rate monitoring, women's health features, built-in GPS for running and other sports, and basic waterproofing for just kind of day-to-day casual swimming. Now, above that, you're then getting into maybe the running watch territory with either the Forerunners or the Venu 4, which adds features like ECG and flashlight above even the Forerunner series. So here I would say go with the Lily, Vivo Move, or Vivo Active if you just want a smaller, more watch of a watch, but still a useful watch. Or if you really want those sports features to compete with the rest of the Garmin lineup, then the Venu 4 is probably the best option here before you then step into one of the Forerunner models if you're more of a running focused person. Now, the best all-round kind of smart and fitness watch. Now, if you are, into your sports, or maybe you just want the best Garmin watch that covers most use cases, so it has decent battery life, lots of features, it isn't too expensive, and I'm going to say this relative to the rest of the Garmin lineup, then my overall pick would be either the Venu 4 or the Fenix 8. Now, the Venu 4 we've just spoken about just now, but the Fenix 8 is definitely more expensive, around $779 for the non-pro model. And again, there are plenty of options in terms of sizes and colors with the Fenix. If you want better battery life, you can opt for the Solar Sapphire model, which features a memory and pixel display instead of that brighter AMOLED display. There are plenty of band options too. I actually found the orange silicone strap that came with my Fenix 8 was starting to rub and hurt my wrist, so I swapped that one out for a Velcro strap, which is way more comfortable, although that then does absorb water after swimming or showering, so you kind of need to dry it off or you risk leaving like wet patches wherever you rest your arm. But overall, I think it is just the most rounded watch that Garmin currently makes without getting into the even more premium price models. Like I said, this is relative to the rest of the Garmin lineup because the Fenix 8 is still priced fairly high. Because next up we have the best luxury Garmin watch. It's a pretty simple choice in my opinion. The Garmin Mark is their one and only watch marketed as the the luxury buyer type watch, albeit still with multiple different options, different finishes. And I actually dailied the Carbon Edition Garmin Mark Athlete for quite a while. Loved how light it felt while still having again all of the usual Garmin features that I'd ever want. But if I was buying today, it would undoubtedly be the Mark Adventurer in Damascus steel. It just looks incredible. That finish of the body with the watch is just stunning. Although after holding one, do not underestimate how heavy this one is. Very, very heavy compared to others. But otherwise, outside of this being my personal opinion, you might prefer the look of the Captain or maybe the Golfer or the Aviator. It all just comes down to personal preference here with the Garmin Mark range. Now, one thing I would say here is that even though these are the most expensive Garmin watches you can buy, they aren't built for extreme use. For example, they're waterproof for casual swimming, but not deep sea diving. And then features like LTE for phoneless communication also aren't provided, in which case, looking again at the Garmin Fenix 8, but the Pro range here, if those are important to you, with the world's first micro LED display as well, which is one of the Garmin Fenix 8 Pro's unique features. Like, think big screen technology squeezed down into a tiny little watch face. This thing can reach up to 4,500 nit peak brightness, and just the overall the color and the saturation of the screen is absolutely beautiful. And same as before, this also has LTE, so you can message and call without a phone here, but you do need to use the Garmin Messenger app to be able to do some of these features. Now let's get into some specific sports now, starting off with diving. And Garmin do make a specific model called the Descent for deep sea diving, which includes some diving specific features and comes in at £1,100 for the 43mm version and up to £1,600 for the 51mm Mark III version. Or if you count it, £2,050 with one that comes with a Descent T2 transceiver. Now, aside from being designed to withstand depths of up to 200 meters deep, lots of features here, including being able to monitor up to 8 air tanks via those T2 transceivers up to 10 meters away. And there is sonar networking to let you message other divers up to 30 meters away. Very, very cool feature here. They also make a buoy that sits on top of the water, which means the boat can also then communicate with divers underneath. Again, super cool features. Other features wise, there is a built-in flashlight, along with just a lot of other typical features. You've got sleep tracking, VO2 max scores, activities, Garmin Coach, and just again, so much more. For any boat people, Garmin do have the Quatix 8, which is kind of a Fenix 8 in everything but its name and the fact it's available in a unique colorway. Now, the Quatix 8 is marketed as a marine watch with features such as being able to control certain Garmin chart plotters and other controls, but all of these features are just part of the Garmin Boat Data app, which can then be downloaded onto the Fenix 8 or even other Garmin smartwatches, including the watch face, which is called the All-Stars Quatix for $5, I think it is, to download. So if you do have a Fenix 8, or if you are trying to decide whether to buy, the Fenix 8 or the Quatix 8, kind of doesn't really matter, just pick the size and color that you prefer and then go with that one. Next up, it's a similar story with golf. However, Garmin does make a few specific models for golf, which are preloaded with various courses and other golf-specific features. Now, these watches are also slimmer, so they don't interfere with your golf swing, which especially bigger watches like the Fenix 8 can on your wrist. You have the flagship Approach S70 at $499, the Approach S50 at $379, and then the more budget Approach S12 at $179. So the S12 is very much your basic watch. It's got a memory and pixel display. It helps you check your distances and your scoring. It doesn't do steps, but it is super basic. And because of that, it has a huge 15-week battery life. The S50, next step up there, gets a color AMOLED touchscreen and features such as club tracking, heart rate sensor, wellness, body battery, activity profiles. It also comes with their more comfortable and slimline nylon bands. And then you get to the S70, their flagship, which gets a larger AMOLED touchscreen and a bunch more health tracking features. There's color course maps and gets close to the Garmin Fenix in terms of overall feature and functions, but it is very, very light compared to the Phoenix. Again, there's this slimmer ceramic bezel, which is far better and interferes less with your golf swing. And then we have the best kids watch. So let's cover off kids as well, since this wouldn't be a buyer's guide without it. So Garmin make a couple of models, the Bounce 2 at £260 and the VivoFit Junior 3 at £79. Although you can still pick up the Junior 2 on places like Amazon for half of that still. And there is a pretty easy line drawn between these two models, with the VivoFit Junior 3 being kids watch with a step counter and, fun things like awards for doing chores, a few games, and, super long 1 year long battery life, versus the Bounce 2, which is a fully featured smartwatch, but sized for kids, and also includes LTE, so you can still text and call and, track your kid without them needing a phone. And this watch doesn't use Garmin Messenger, so there is no awkward need to set up accounts anywhere. This is just pure SMS and pure phone calls. Now this one is waterproof and can even be used when swimming, but because it is a fully fledged smartwatch here, battery life is typically 2 days here, and that's 2 days on LTE, which is actually pretty solid when you compare to other smartwatches. But you can still do all forms of, health and fitness activities, sleep tracking, safety features, and music. So the choice here will just depend on the age of your child. That was the Garmin Watch Buyer's Guide. I do hope it was useful and informative. Links to everything mentioned will be linked down below this video, along with the link to Vitality Health Insurance, where you can get up to 40% discount on Garmin watches. Also, sign up to my newsletter, Experiments in Progress, where you can get twice weekly emails about the latest tech that I'm testing, since not all of it makes its way into these videos. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.